condolences, mainly the priest Nakivi Nje who lost the mother. My condolences to him and all others who lost their dear ones before the end of the year.
We ended the year with you, we've started it with you. It seems it will be a good year.
Oh, it will be a very, very, very good year. That one I'm sure. I think my technical officer, Omara, will tell you what, how the economy will be growing.
Dr. Sarah Berete, the Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. Good evening and Happy New Year, Doctor.
Thank you, Timothy, and Happy New Year to you and the viewers. Good evening. I welcome you all to 2025.
Colors seemingly to tell us what the elections look like come this year?
No, I am non-partisan.
Okay. Honorable Omara Paul, Member of Parliament representing the people of Otuke County and a seasoned banker, member of the Budget and the Finance Committee. Good evening and Happy New Year.
Good evening, Timothy. Good evening to the great panelists. Happy New Year to the people of Uganda. I spent my Christmas in Otuke. It was very peaceful. I want to thank the security of Otuke. Some of the people that the president made addressed about the petty thieves, some of them spent time in jail. It was all peaceful. I'm happy to be back.
You'll give us an update on that. I like the, happy to be back. Professor Sarah Sali, the Dean at the School of Women and Gender Studies at Makerere University. Good evening and Happy New Year, Professor.
Yes, good evening, Timothy, and good evening, our viewers. Maybe just to inform you, the school is being transformed into the Institute of Gender and Development Studies. So beginning today, so the title will change. But I hope everyone went through a fruitful Christmas, a Merry Christmas, and hope everyone will have a fruitful New Year. Personally, as a family, we lost a great aunt, a mother in the family who we buried yesterday. She died on the 27th. So it has been a period of reflection and of mourning, but we are still hopeful that 2025, God is still there for us.
Our condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
Old man of the clan, 111 years old, the chief executive of the Independent magazine. Mr.
112. You think I don't grow old? But I was born 3rd October 1912. I just wanted to know that age. 3rd October 1912. Now I'm 112 years. I'm the oldest man living in the whole world.
They are 112 in the new year of 2025. Good evening, Andrew, and it's good to have you.
Good evening, my grandson.
It's been a long time. What have you been up to?
I've been running around this continent and this globe to ensure that the people of this world are united and peaceful.
I hope they get united. You can be part of the conversation. Go to our YouTube channel, drop your comment there, or our X platform, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. The number is 0709 60 25 92. Text and WhatsApp on it, and we'll be able to get into the conversation. We'll look at a bit of 2024 and also look at what 2025 is ready to serve us, both on the menu for politics, the economy, but also the service delivery. Andrew, it is best I start with you since you have been away. We started on a note. I remember quotes of things you said last year that really caught me. One, you talked about a certain process. If it is an iPhone they're buying, they're better with the process than getting the product. And then I remember you also hinted on the roads of Kampala and really lambasted how bad they were. UNRWA closed towards the end of the year. When you look at 2024, in hindsight with 2025, what do you make of it?
You see, Uganda is at the meeting point of different and contradictory movements. You see, on the one side, you have impressive growth and development of the private sector. I always tell people that you just, when we came to power recently in 1986, to drive from Kampala to go to Namugongo was equivalent to going to my village in Kanyandahi. Actually, even in Tinda here, people were living in grass-thatched huts or mud and water houses with iron sheets, with mud and rather what do you call it, rammed earth floor. And grazing goats and chicken and planting beans here in Ntinda. But today you can drive from Kampala all the way to Namugongo, which used to appear like you have gone far out of Kampala, you have gone to Namugongo. Now it's one continuous city, people are building apartment blocks, shopping malls, supermarkets, decent houses, magnificent houses. It's incredible what the explosion in the size of the middle class of Uganda. You go from here all the way to Entebbe, Kampala, and Entebbe are merging as they're becoming two towns. Just drive on the expressway and look on all sides of the road, the quality of housing people are doing. If you talk to the guys of steel, like roofings, people produce steel, they tell you that they used 80% of their market used to be Kampala. Today, Kampala is maybe 30% of their market, meaning that people even up country are building houses from permanent materials. I'm waiting to, the final figures of the census are out. I want to go and read how many people have living in houses with the built out of permanent materials. So there is that side of Uganda where at the level of the private enterprise of the individual person, there is expansion of the economy and growing prosperity. Then there is this other side of Uganda, which is really depressing. The collapse of the ability of the state to perform basic functions like ensuring viable infrastructure in the capital city, like ensuring proper policing, traffic policing, garbage collection. You saw what happened with Kitez, and Kitez was just a tip of an iceberg. Protecting protected areas like swamps and areas around the lakes. The government of Uganda, in performance of those very routine functions, is characterized by extreme corruption, incompetence, foot dragging, apathy, indifference, laziness, everything you can put it there. It's so disturbing. So we live in those two worlds. In fact, for me, the greatest criticism of Museveni I can make as a president is when I was young and in secondary school, Museveni was saying we need to create a middle class of 50,000 Ugandans. 50,000. Maybe now you have a middle class of more than 500,000. Or maybe 1 million Ugandans may be in the middle class. But this guy has no clue on how do you manage an economy that has a large and sizable middle class. Really. And it is the most embarrassing thing about a person who is so intellectually grounded like Museveni. I visited Bugolobi the other day. It's as if you're in Mogadishu after 30 years of civil war. You cannot drive on any road. It is just potholes, potholes. This is the richest neighborhood. You go to Kololo here. Here we're in Nakasero. Go to Nakasero here. And it is just a disaster. I wonder whether, you know, sometimes I want to blame Museveni, but I ask, we have these MPs. You guys, my grandson Omar, you have 529 of you, 500,000 of you. Exactly what do you do? Then you have these ministers, permanent secretaries and all this. How can the destiny of Uganda depend on one old man of 80 years who has no experience of how to manage a modern city? I returned yesterday morning from Accra. It makes you, Kampala is as if you have moved from the first world to the third world. Go to Kigali here. Kigali, Rwanda's GDP is 14 billion. Uganda's is 58 billion. Rwanda's population is 14 million, we are 47 million. And we have better skills, better everything. These people are running a serious country. Here we are running, even a village market cannot be run as incompetent as this incompetent sham we are watching. Anyway, I am a very, very bitter person when it comes to issues of infrastructure around Kampala. Talk of drainage, talk of protecting swamps and other protected areas, talk of potholes and gutters on the road, talk of garbage collection. I mean, even basic cleanness. This country is in such shit. I'm sorry to use French on this show. It's such shit when it comes to infrastructure. So there's this contradiction we face. A country which has a rapidly growing middle class, people are buying expensive cars, building nice houses, having shopping malls and all these modern aspects of a modern life, living side by side with a state that is incapable of providing these basic services of infrastructure. If you have a middle class, you have more cars. If you have more cars, you need better roads. Anyway, let me say one or two things that I can say positively. Uganda is lucky that somehow it has good delivery of water and electricity. You'd be surprised, I think we are among the best in this area. National Water and Sewage Corporation has been winning this best water utility in Africa for the last 10 years. Every year they win. So at least you can go home and be assured that there is water. The other is
the quality of water?
I think they have very good water. Okay. The problem in Uganda of water is your tank. National Water has no capacity to control the hygiene of your tank. But their pipe, I can bet for you, if you get water directly from your pipe, you can even drink it, and it's healthy water. And so I was just finishing that I don't like to sound like Uganda's opposition, who have a particular view of Museveni that they don't look at the multitudinous complexity of Uganda. So I'm trying to show that even within particular services of the state, and I'm giving provision of water, electricity, Umeme, Umeme, and the Uganda Electoral Transmission Company, and these other elements that generate electricity, we have although the grid is not widely spread, at least you don't have the kind of shutdowns or load shedding that used to exist. And you find them in South Africa and so many other countries in Africa today. In Uganda, they are beginning to suffer something like that. Another area may be how they have managed NSSF, the pension system. Rather, it's a provident fund. The provident fund works with a high level of competence. But this issue of roads in Kampala, even now roads up country, when you are going to Fort Portal, the road is dead. You are going to Arua, the road is dead. You are going to Mutukula, the road is dead and dying. And another thing is, now UNRWA is not even paying.
Exactly, that's where I wanted to go. UNRWA 9 trillion portfolio that they have been handling. And listening to the Minister, Honorable General Katumba, talking about what is pending. The rollover from NDP2 to NDP3 that is hoping to go to NDP4.
That's a disaster. Partners. Let me give you an example, my grandson. And I want Ugandans to listen to this carefully. Uganda right now, as we stand today, has about 1.3, if it does not reach 1.4 trillion worth of certificates. Contractors have done work, finished, they have completion certificates. Government cannot pay them. Of those 1.2 trillion, and I'm giving you figures that are 6 months old, of the 1.2 trillion, 750 billion is actually interest-bearing certificates. So the Ugandan taxpayer has to pay 350 million shillings every single day as interest on certificates that are not being paid. In the first quarter of this financial year, that is July, August, and September, government of Uganda for road development released to UNRWA 1 billion shillings. People think I'm making an arithmetic mistake. It's not a mistake, 1 billion. It can't even fill a pothole. What exactly are you doing? You gave them a budget of 4 trillion. In the first quarter, for a country suffering from acute disaster of road, of dilapidated roads, you issue 1 billion. It can't even fill a pot. What exactly are you working? Are you thinking? So this country, one side where things are okay, but it has another side where I think this country is dead or dying, and it needs an urgent rescue.
Thank you very much. Professor, looking very elegant. We spent almost most of last year together here, discussing from rationalization to traders to everything that came up on the news. When you look at 2024 and look at 2025, paint a picture that is more hopeful than our grandfather here.
Yes, thank you very much, Timothy. Well, I think we should always keep hope alive. But one thing which is very interesting was that we closed the year with a tweet from Charles Onyango-Bo. And if I can read the tweet, he mentioned how Ugandan Asians comprise 1% of the country's population, and Ugandan Somalis less than 0.5%, but together they contribute nearly 80% of the country's tax revenues. And on a per capita basis, the Somalis now contribute more than the Asians. And then he concludes by saying the indigenous Ugandans, the owners of the land, including those loud-mouthed fellows showing off big cars in the capital city, maybe like my brother here, contribute peanuts. They are just a bunch of freeloaders, especially if you factor in the contribution from the Eritreans. So I think this quote, of course, it raised a lot of debate on the different WhatsApp forums we are on. But I think for me it reflected the debate that has always occurred. What is wrong with our economy? Is it that all of us are just either existing off the state? I mean, that the method that I earn a salary from the state, that means probably I'm not producing much. I'm being paid for the service. We're a service-based economy. Probably the area of production is very limited. I remember when Kasita went on strike, we in government couldn't, our salaries delayed by 2 weeks. So downtown people go on strike, our salaries delay. Of course, the country has tried a lot, the government, to try and bring in social inclusion, financial inclusion of the poor. But that's another debate where PDM is concerned. So what this actually shows is that we have an economy which is difficult to explain. We are surviving, and indeed we survive. Probably the economists need to re-theorize the kind of economy we live in, because the official statistics may be the formal people who are paying tax are the Asians and the Somalis. Probably those people who are paying corporate tax. They have not factored in the means, the use, and everybody else who is paying tax.
Could it be the large informal sector to be able to capture?
That's exactly where I was coming to, that the others could be formal. The rest of us, I mean, there's a small formal sector in this country. The rest of the people are in the informal sector. So they are working, they are producing, but because they are informalized, they are not regulated, they are not tracked, and then we tend to pass them off as if they are doing nothing, yet actually they are doing something. So I think for me, the picture I would want to point, I think this kind of economy, which is a small formal and a large informal, is not very sustainable. I know they have tried to track this around, but largely using taxation. But I think we need to put more effort towards also production and support in that sector. If people are in peasantry, how do we document that peasantry? How do we support that peasantry? Because if we don't document, if we don't track, then we cannot support the sectors that are actually producing. Because indeed production is occurring. We are just not tracking it. So I think for me, what I look forward to in 2025 is really hope that interest should be paid. At least if this statistic is true, someone should be interested in knowing, so what are the rest of us doing? If it's the Asians and Somalis contributing 80%, what are the rest of us on this table doing? What are the 87% in rural areas doing? If they're surviving, how do we make them more gainfully employed or more gainfully productive, so that it's not just the debate we're having in PDM? Because recently we're having a joke, I think the subsequent years of PDM, we may have to spend more money tracking PDM cash than actually investing in the production. So a lot has happened this year. And of course, there were some issues of mental health. We know there's a policeman who killed someone at a traffic junction. But also we had started the year with other people and gun violence, which the state was able to contain. So I think this just shows us levels of maybe mental health, and they need to pay attention to mental health. This year, actually, there have been many seminars and a lot of focus on mental health. But I think there's more that needs to be done in that area. But other than that, I think I'm hopeful that 2025, the economy, I really don't know, but I think I'm going to be hopeful that something should happen. We have inherited more debt. There has been a lot of talk of debt this year, and being more indebted and having a budget which is more than 50% aid dependent. So I hope also this year, probably with the attention and the prudence measures that have been in place, the rationalization, maybe 2025 will be different. But I think the other thing we've seen in 2024, there's been a lot of outcry about when things go wrong. So it's no longer, we don't mind Tusaba government etuyambe. There's been a lot of, some element of civic activism, online activism, the SPIRE kind of things. And then people just saying that is unacceptable. Some people being held to account, like for Chitezi. Of course, 2025, we are going to see a lot more electioneering. So we don't know whether that means we are going to shine the torch brighter into accountability, or we shall leave it at that. But indeed, someone has always joked that Uganda is like a sitcom. There's always one thing moving and moving and moving. But I hope with regard to the economy, we shall pay more attention to it this year, so that we don't end up with a very big donor dependent. Before I come to Honorable Mara, you mentioned Chitezi and something Andrew mentioned there. It has, KCCA is having an incoming ED and Deputy ED. You and I were seated here with the former Deputy ED, David Luyimbazi, and we were discussing especially this. I also know that Andrew's friend, Frank, has bought land in Mitiana. They are decommissioning Chitezi. Your thoughts on, Andrew said we are really in a bad shape in terms of garbage. How do you see that change around? Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very hopeful about the incoming team at KCCA. I know Hajat Sharif Abuzeki very well. I've worked with her for more than 10 years. She's a very competent person. I don't know much about her deputy, but when you Google him, he also has a very good track record. I don't want to say the previous team was not very competent. They were competent. So in terms of competence of the people who occupy the City Hall, I think they have it. But what we need to pay attention to is the ecosystem in which they work. Because they are there, and there will always be people in City Hall as technocrats, but they will always be dependent to my brother and team for budget appropriation. There will be other interests which are political in nature because there are so many councillors, they have so many divisions they look after, the roads Andrew is talking about, the health facilities, the markets, there are quite so many things. And I think this should make us also pay attention to the political economy of things. I think it's not just enough to know what is right to do. I know Andrew mentioned something about corruption, but I know corruption flourishes because it rewards. And so we need to see when all these things are being implemented, what are the interests of the people in that ecosystem in which the implementation of things have to occur. And it's not just beginning and ending with City Hall, but the whole chain of things. What are the interests of those demanding services? What are the interests of those who have been contracted to do the services? What are the interests of those who are appropriating the budgets? What are the interests of politicians and other stakeholders and everybody? And those interests do not just shape the availability of resources, whether human resource or financial resources. They also can deter holding people accountable. So there's been a change in City Hall. I trust the leadership of Hajat Sharifa. She has done so well as a commission in public service, her deputy, and all the other people. There's the Lord Mayor. I think everyone wishes them well, and we believe in them. But I think we need to also appreciate that they work within a wider ecosystem that has many more people with differing interests. So if this can be reined in, then we shall see a lot of performance at City Hall.
As they say, the pudding shall be in the testing.
Yes.
Let me come to Honorable Mara. I know that last year we sat here and discussed rationalization.
Yes.
And you were very vehement on discussing not just the agencies, ministries, and departments. You spread it wider to government.
Yes.
Umeme will be leaving 31st of March. UNRWA left December. You sit on finance and budget. You are an economist. Give us the cost-benefit analysis. Because the Ugandan is looking at a cheaper unit. The Ugandan is looking at what Andrew has said, a road that is not going to make me change my shocks. What is the cost-benefit analysis here?
Thank you, Timothy, and I would want to start by reflecting on what my two colleagues have talked about. And of course, I share 100% the expressions of Andrew on matters Kampala City. It's one of the most shambolic cities you can ever find in the world. And when you travel and you come back, it is a sad story. But let's look at the overarching issue. How did we get here?
Mm-hmm.
I think the challenge we have is prioritization of government agenda. And if you are seated where President Museveni is, you have to consider this animal called political economy.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to run Uganda just as an economist, there are certain things that you'll throw out of the budget item, as a budget item. You'll throw them out. But when you're managing a very complex society like Uganda, some of the priority areas which ordinarily would be ignored, you put money there. And so over the years, as Andrew said, from 1986 to date, what have we done? We built a burgeoning public service. If you look at the budget which we put there to run our different, in the main unproductive public service, is in the range of now 8 trillion shillings. So you're basically continuing to pour money to pay salaries, pay people's suits, travel, and all that. And in the main, as already indicated from the statistics, mainly we are unproductive. So how do you get to reprioritize government investment, putting correct money in key areas of investment? I think President Museveni has done one great thing of biting the bullet, starting with the rationalization of government. We had a situation where now you have parallels, basically. You have government within government, and very powerful people earning big salaries and creating a lot of, how do I call it, wastage of public resources. So what if you look at the reflections of 2024, for me, I have been a key supporter of downsizing government, of having a much smaller government, so that you invest money in areas that generate wealth. And I would dare say we should not only stop with parastatals. We need to come and look at the size of parliament. Why should you have 529 MPs? What are they doing there? And you continue to look at even the public services of every government departments, the ministries themselves. How many people are inside there? Why do you spend 8 trillion shillings a year in running a public service? And I want to agree with Andrew. If you look at Kampala, Kampala has expanded, is caught up with Mukono, is going now to West Jinja, so it's being built by private sector. And so this private sector and the middle income people that are beginning to generate wealth, they need to live in a city, in a modern city. Now you have people have great houses outside there. You want to go to people's homes. You get lost because there are no road signs, there are bad roads. So we need to get that money and invest in the infrastructure. And remember, almost 70% of your GDP is generated within 100 miles radius of Kampala. And yet these Kampala areas of ours is the most shambolic. The road infrastructures have basically died. So I would want to predict, and hopefully so, that from 2025, the President Museveni has led the carrion call to downsize government. I hope that process continues. We must begin to legislate and have a smaller parliament, have a smaller cabinet, have a smaller public service in the real sense. By the way, at one particular point, even when the government was still fighting war in the north, there was what I think was at the time called reduction of force. President Museveni went and reduced the number of UPDF. Remember, these are soldiers trained with guns, and they went home without pay. They were basically downsized and said, go home, you know, get embedded in the community, and there was no crisis. What about now with a much stronger UPDF, a much stronger police force? We can get this public service. I'm told UNRWA now needs about 100 and something billion shillings to be paid as an exit, whatever. Money.
Severance package.
As a package. Look, how many are they there? Now UPDF, they were in their thousands, they went without money. Today, agencies are going back with money. I'm not saying people's rights should be jeopardized, but I'm saying we don't need a bigger public service. I agree with Andrew that UNRWA had accumulated a lot of money from the private sector. And he said they have released whatever, 1 billion. What is happening that Andrew might not know is that the government is bringing a bill in front of before Parliament. I think we'll consider it in the coming weeks to basically reallocate funds from UNRWA that were given to UNRWA to the ministry. Now, if the agency has been rationalized, why should you be given more money? And I think that was just a token, but the ministry has moved to Ministry of Works, and I mean the department has moved. So the entire money of UNRWA is now going to go will be reallocated by Parliament to the Ministry of Works, and the permanent secretary and the team there now will have to handle all those private sector that had not been paid for a very long time. Let me answer your question on Omeme. If there is any agency that was wrongly contracted because of the legal agreements that we had with Omeme, we had to bear the burden of that expensive enterprise. You know, making the cost of electricity to be so high. And President Museveni complained about this thing, but you know, when you have legal agreements and you are not a pariah state, you must respect the agreements that you sign. So Omeme will be leaving on the 1st of April this year. And the activities of Obebe will now be managed by Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited. Hopefully, since this is a government agency, we expect the cost of electricity to go down, because it's now about, I think, 8.7 cents per kilowatt hours. Our target is to get it up to 5 cents. And the most expensive one is Bujagali, which contributes to 40% of the tariff cost. We did an investigation, and an action has not yet been taken by government. We want the power of, the cost of electricity to go down, so that the government agenda of industrializing Uganda can be achieved, because one of the obstacles is basically the cost of electricity. And leave alone the cost of funds, of borrowing money. For manufacturers, I'm one of them. The cost is electricity.
Honorable, let me stick with you. I wanted to go to data and appropriation, but let me come to the performance of Parliament.
Yes.
Exhibitions happened about Parliament there. You and I sat here and talked about appropriation,
yes.
The appropriation bill that became a dance that was there.
Yes.
How has Parliament performed in delivering the expectations of Ugandans on especially your four cardinal roles? Appropriation, legislation, oversight. How have you performed?
You know, some might not agree with me, but in terms of statistics, in terms of bills passed, resolutions made by Parliament, the oversight work we have done, this Parliament has performed much better than any other Parliament.
But it has been the most embarrassing.
Now, but we have been embarrassed. so those are two different things. But if you look at the work that we did in terms of legislation, in terms of oversight, you know, in terms of appropriation, we've done well. And by the way, I should tell you, I was on this show at very unhappy. Professor Sarah, remember, my face was very terrible. Because when we passed the budget for this financial year, it was the first time the president returned the bill. And I said on this show that if there are culpability in terms of corruption, because the president alleged that corruption is the Minister of Finance, then it goes to the accounting officers, then Parliament. Then I said, okay, MPs have been arrested. We are waiting for the Minister of Finance officials to be arrested. And then the guys from the PSS, the accounting officers, to be arrested. Now, I saw only one accounting officer, none from the Minister of Finance. I just want to add that to the incident at Bank of Uganda, where I think now we've lost about $8-point-something million. Look at the brazen manner in which officials from Ministry of Finance initiate a transaction which is meant to be for debt repayments. You put in a sexy name, and it comes to Bank of Uganda, and then the money is wired out. As a banker, let me just give you a small learning here. When these files are sent between parties, they're encrypted. You cannot read them. Even if you get the file, it makes no sense to you, because you cannot read it. It makes no sense. But when it gets to Bank of Uganda, they disencrypt it so that they can actually just view. You cannot even add anything. You can't change a figure, but to know whether this is not going for terrorism financing, it's not going where, whatever. But based on the agreement between Bank of Uganda and Ministry of Finance, there is an MOU which is agreed that when you send files to us, we will send it back to you after viewing, doing our due diligence. We send it back to you. We don't do anything. If you feel that it's wrong, then you alert us. After 2 days, we say, Bank of Uganda does not authorize payments of government. It's just a bank of Uganda. It's just a government to pay out. And government imports, there are so many things that now you can imagine up to take money from to divert government money, and you. Of course, they are culpable. They say it's under investigation. It's not before court, so we can discuss it. So Bank of Uganda does not originate the transaction. I am just wondering up to now why people have not been arrested.
But it's possible to originate, and people in Bank of Uganda colluded. They can tell you.
No,
It
but
may require both sides to collaborate
so
that money to be transferred.
No, Bank of Uganda, those files, you cannot tamper with them. It is what we call a throughput system. There is less human intervention, but it's a throughput.
But Honorable,
yes.
So doesn't Bank of Uganda know Uganda's people who lend Uganda government?
You see,
how can they pay fictitious name?
Now, just let me explain that. Bank of Uganda receives several payments, government payments, for imports, for other things, daily. And they do not go to government to say, but why are you paying this? It's not the work of Bank of Uganda. Bank of Uganda just says, okay, we have seen it. The work of Bank of Uganda is totally different. It's to making sure that there are enough reserves, forex reserves, to pay for government obligations. That's the work of Bank of Uganda. If the forex are not available, Bank of Uganda goes outside to buy those forex. It's to maintain a stable monetary policy.
Okay.
So, but when Bank of Uganda, contracts, let me say, World Bank debt, they know the account where the money has to go. But this time they did not tell them this is for payments of the IMF or ADA, African Development Bank. But it was said that this is payments could be one of those. They alerted Bank of Uganda much later that this one was meant to pay for this debt. Bank of Uganda said, but you didn't say so. What was here, we thought it was one of your obligations. So, and Bank of Uganda is saying this thing came from the Accountant General's office. Now, they are the same people who are investigating. So, on matters of corruption, so President Museveni raised a clarion call last year. I hope that the prosecution will continue. It will not just be a poison chalice. And we hope that this kind of brazen corruption can be dealt with more seriously in 2025.
Thank you very much. Let me come to Dr. Sarah. Doctor, from the exhibitions, you saw Parliament, you saw roads, you saw hospitals. It took us through a bit of time to be able to go through all of those. But also you were here when we discussed the state of our judiciary. We also talked about bail. Now we are hearing bond. What is the problem with this bail and bond, the president, the executive, and the judiciary?
Well, maybe if I may start from where Honorable Umara has stopped. The president yesterday, sounded very bitter about village thieves. But he's not bothered about the thieves at the Bank of Uganda and the Ministry of Finance that are stealing billions of dollars of taxpayers' money. He wants...
Billions of shillings.
Of shillings, okay. He wants the village thieves of goats, of chicken, the wretched of the earth, cattle, denied their rights to personal liberty as enshrined in the Constitution. But he's not bothered about thieves in his cabinet that stole Karamoja iron sheets, about absence of Bank of Uganda governor for 3 years, and the scandals that are happening in that central bank. He's not bothered about the thieves at the Ministry of Finance that are posting fictitious payments. He's not bothered about the 9 trillion, according to IGG, that we lose every year to corruption. What does that show you? It shows you that the NRM regime keeps itself in power through corruption. And they are not bothered about stealing of taxpayers' money. But because we are cattle keepers, because we are farmers, then the people who steal goats, cattle, people's raw coffee should feature in the State of Nation address and not the Bank of Uganda haste of trillions of money. The issues that Andrew Mwenda and others are talking about are leadership issues. I think we should stop beating about the bush. You blame KCCA, you blame RDCs. Who is the head of the family when it comes to leadership? The president has achieved so many good things over 38, 39 years. Remarkable things. But even a good dancer has where they should stop. His time is way up. Andrew is talking about an economy for a middle class. You are talking of somebody who has not taken leave for 39 years, according to his own confession. He has not taken any leave, not any vacation. He's now 82 years old. 39 years of managing a state. There's nothing more he's going to add. We can sit here and dream. We can blame subordinates under him. But we have a leadership crisis that this country must address. When it comes to constitutional issues, the president, under Article 99 of the Constitution, he derives his executive power through protection of the Constitution and laws subordinate to the Constitution. So when he acts in contempt of the Constitution, he's violating his own executive power. His main job is to protect the Constitution. And that's what gives him power to rule this country. Sovereign power is derived from protection of the Constitution, not violation of it. So the president has been speaking about bail, about bond. These are fundamental rights and freedoms that are entrenched in our Constitution, that even Parliament cannot just amend. They need a referendum. Article 23 of the Constitution provides for police bond. If you cannot try somebody within 48 hours, you must give them bond as you investigate. The mistake that the president was saying police is under him, yes, as a pillar of a state, it is under the executive. The mistake that the police makes is they first arrest and investigate later. Yet the law presumes that they should first investigate and arrest. But they rush to arrest and don't even think of a crime when people are in custody, think of a charge. They hold the people 2 days. You ask them what is the charge, they don't know. And they are beginning to gamble with the investigation. So they cannot manage the constitutional threshold of 48 hours. And whose problem is that? It's a leadership problem. Somewhere the police is not facilitated to do the work effectively as envisaged in the Constitution, but also the leadership, especially when it comes to political activists. You arrest the demonstrators, you charge them with offenses that are outlawed in the Constitution by the Constitutional Court, you're gambling with what to charge them, you arrest. It's all these political crimes. People don't even know what to do, but they have an order to arrest. So how will they meet the 48-hour deadline? So what the president should have said is to tell his police that they must produce people in court within 48 hours. But you don't give an unconstitutional order that you don't give bond. If this is the wish of the president, Chapter 4 is entrenched. Then let's go for a referendum. The issues of bail. Bail is provided for under Article 28, presumption of innocence. It's the discretion of courts to give. So if you want to order courts, first to go for a referendum and put that power under you as executive. These orders, declarations, decrees are unconstitutional. The president is suffering from a colonial hangover where there was repression of citizens of Ugandans, but also maybe Idi Amin hangover of decrees. Otherwise, Uganda is governed by the Constitution, and we cannot change that through TV addresses.
Thank you very much. Let me come to, before I come to the Honorable Minister, Dr. Sarah, is there any correlation between what the President talked about, bail and bond, and what Andrew's leader of PLU said, the ultimatum he made for police commanders on how law and order would be if anyone talked about the President, him, any senior commander? Is there any correlation between those two?
And most of that time, is especially through tweets, is like an outro. I think 90% of the things said on that handle are outside the norm, outside the constitution, and sometimes outside common sense. The minister guided of national guidance that we should not pay attention to them. And I don't know why you're raising them. Because if you go under Article 208 of the Constitution, army officers are not supposed to engage in politics. They can do social media, but me, my concern is politics. The character of our national army is non-partisan. The conduct of the CDF is partisan, is unconstitutional, and lacks common sense sometimes.
Okay, I'll come back to that one. Let me come to the Honorable Minister. Yes.
But maybe just looking at why I think the President came up with the banning of police bonds and so forth. I think he's been doing Kokuyega around the country on this PDM
Yes.
Productivity issue. When I went to the village, I found there are a number of young boys who had developed an idea of stealing goods from people, especially the communities, arresting women in the night, doing a lot of things. But when they are arrested and they are taken in, they are released. So the community were complaining about these characters who had made life in the village very difficult. I saw some of them, about 4 were arrested in Otuke. I am not saying that is the solution. Maybe I'm saying he's seeing the general cry from the population, and I think he can solve it with the executive order. But
the solution lies in empowering police,
yes,
to investigate in a speedy manner,
yes,
and present people within 48 hours.
40 hours.
Yeah, that's the solution.
Let me bring in the Honorable Minister. 2024, we spent a bit of time with you here. How do you think government has performed 2024, looking at both your manifesto and the mandate, the social contract you have with Ugandans?
I think I've listened to my colleagues, and they have brought out so many issues, which is very nice feedback for us as government. But 2024 has been really a year of recovery from the COVID-19 sort of recession, because 2020 to 2022 was really very bad, and 2023, that's when lockdown was lifted, and 2024 really has been a year of recovery from all those shocks of COVID-19. So on average, we have really performed fairly well. Look at security, for instance. Me, I'm a border guy, and my border is one of the most is one which is really under threat from ADF. But 2024, we saw a lot of stability. 2023, you saw how ADF crossed and slaughtered 46 students. But 2024, I think we have really managed to stabilize. If you look at Karamoja, I think there is now some peace in Karamoja. So if you look at security in totality, there has been a bit of stability, and now at least the country is safe from both the internal and the external aggression. And without security, everything else is on standstill. So there, I think we have really performed very well. And when it comes to food security, for instance, you have seen Bank of Uganda, Ministry of Finance is posting percentages of inflation, and I think we are doing very well. It's mainly because food prices have gone down and some have stabilized. people have been able now to go back to the gardens and produce a lot. And some of those gains have been due to money that has been pumped in through PDM, mainly where I come from, and some of the places where I have visited. So you can see that there is a lot of food being produced, and the prices have stabilized. And that one is also a gain on our side. Most of the countries, strikes begin from absence of what? Scarcity of food. I think what we are still lacking now is marketing of whatever is being produced. You just see there is a bamba harvest, say, in Kasese, but there is scarcity in Karamoja, and we cannot really get food from Kasese to Karamoja. So if we can sort out those logistic issues, I think we shall move very well. And when you come to fuel prices, I think right now our UNOC is doing very well. We have really stabilized the oil prices. I think our move to import directly was one of the best moves, because so far so good. We have a lot of gains. The prices have stabilized. They have even reduced a bit, which is really something good. If we can maintain that and even improve, we shall be on the right track. And you know that fuel prices matter a lot in most of the costs of production and all other costs in Uganda. We have seen commissioning of several industrial parks, and now we can produce some of the items locally, which is really so good. If you go to the market now, you can get tiles, for instance. Let me give an example of floor tiles. You can get them and cheaply. The tiles from Goodwill, which are really of good quality. So and so many other products now are coming on board. We in the ICT sector now, there is a company which has started assembling phones from here, and we strongly believe the prices of smartphones is going to go down, because we have now started expanding the national backbone of internet as government, and also our service providers. The private sector is doing a lot. But unless we hook more people on internet, the prices of per megabyte per second may not reduce. We are now as government at $35 per megabyte per second, but we want in the next 2 years we should reach at least $5 to $10 per megabyte per second. But we need more people on internet, and therefore we should ensure we expand our infrastructure, and that's what we have started now. And we think in the next 3 years we should be through with the infrastructure. Tourism has also
you mentioned
improved.
something, and I'll come to Andrew about especially some two things that came up. You mentioned something about security, and Honorable Mara mentioned the young people. If the statistics of the census are anything to go by, the ones that came before, 0 to 17 is about 55%, about 18 to 35 years of age is about 22%, the old ones that they gave us there. That's about 77% of the population. If you want to imprison these young people for stealing, what is the root cause of them stealing? Has government found out? Because there's unemployment. You're telling us about smartphones, that's very good. You're telling us about industrial parks, that's very good. But what people are looking for is income in their pockets, which it seems to be an environment that is not enabling.
No, obviously you have identified the problem. The problem is unemployment. But unemployment cannot come in a vacuum. You must put up industries to employ them. Because everybody thinks employment must be from civil service or government. But government employs only 300,000 people. So the biggest population must be employed in the private sector or even self-employed. And that's why we are saying, let us put in place an enabling environment. We must expand our ICT infrastructure. We must expand our energy infrastructure. Those prices of fuel must go down so that we attract more people to invest in the industry. We must ensure there is security so that people can invest in tourism, and it's going to employ many people. I was doing some research on tourism recently. It's now employing about 2.6 million people, tourism alone. And therefore, if we expand it, it can even employ more people. But what you have identified is correct. Yeah, unemployment is causing all this youth redundancy, and therefore theft. And if I can conclude on that, on the issue what the president said, yes, the big thieves are there in government, and who have come here, and I have talked about it openly. I can't say there is no corruption in government, because even the IGGRC 10 trillion is being stolen per what? Per year. You can imagine, and that 10 trillion, Omar is the one who knows how to break down this budget. You know, this budget, you meet money for development. Out of the 52 trillion, I think money for development is about 20. 72 trillion. Yes, 72 trillion. Money for development might be around, say, 30 trillion. But that one is what is stolen, because the rest is paid as what? Salaries and whatever. Nobody steals that money. The little money which is supposed to really put in place infrastructure and develop the country is what is stolen. And without that money being put in what is supposed to do, we cannot create jobs. And therefore, that's where we should go. And those thieves must be fought. But these petty thieves, you know, at macro level, the economy is doing very well. At macro what level? And you know, all these things, middle class, what, are measured by macroeconomic indicators. But at micro level, that's where the economy is doing what? Badly. What is that small person in the village putting in the pocket? Now, this, in my village recently, a young man stole a phone. It was at a vigil. And he was arrested with the phone, taken to police. The following day, before even burial, the man was back from police. Exactly. For the funeral now. Now, the night, that real night, he went and stole a pig, which belonged to an old woman. He actually killed the piglets, 10 of them, and stole the what? The mother pig. And went into a river valley and started feasting on the what? On the pig. Now, the villagers traced for the pig, and they found this man roasting the what? The pig. They killed him. Why? Because they didn't want to take him to police again. They knew even if they took him to police, he would come back the following day. And they killed him. Now police is looking for those who murdered the what? The guy. But you know, now that is the contradiction. Why, if someone has stole, when we were young, whenever you stole chicken, they would tie it around your what? Around your neck. Now, if they take you to police with the chicken around your what? Your neck, what else is police looking for? That's the problem. What other evidence is the police looking for? Now, let me first complete. You will come in. What else is police looking for? The person, the owner of the chicken is there, and the chicken is around your what? Your neck. Exactly. Why doesn't the police take your statement? The exhibit is there and assemble you before a magistrate.
Exactly.
And then it becomes the magistrate's prerogative whether to give you bail or not. But you know, police now says, okay, you go. And you make a statement. After you have made a statement, you go. The following day, the chicken thief is what? In the village. And that's the thing. What terrorists are you investigating? That's the biggest problem the villagers are complaining about. And this old woman, this pig was her livelihood. It was her livelihood. It's not like me and you who have other sources of what? Of income. And once you kill it, you even do the most evil thing by even killing the piglets. You don't, if you were hungry, I would say you took the pig and feasted on it. But you even kill the what? The piglets. Leave the piglets to the old woman and go and eat the what?
Okay.
The pig. So those are the contradictions. And therefore the president is saying, look, you guys, why do you give bond to such a thief when the case is as open as possible? If you think you still have more evidence, police can even take you to court, and the magistrate takes you to prison as they what? They investigate.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me read some feedback that has come through. This is a gentleman. Okay. He says the man is correct because marketing is going down and building malls is binding more Kampala. We should be talking about what is going on with the president. Issues like roads, to talk about high taxes are killing us. Professor, the high population is affecting Uganda in the ghetto. People are dying of shortage of resources, no jobs, stealing in the ghettos. So government is doing its role and they should help us in the ghettos who are homeless. Some politicians are useless in Uganda. Most of them are like islands. Government should help us. This is Paul. He says, next, Uganda is playing nowadays because how can our main bank be hacked by a number of people? After Mbu, 500 million of fake money there. Okay, thank you very much for your message. Let me get to another one here. This one asks a question. 80 plus of the ministers are being on social media, and you only can see them with marriage issues and romance. Having a group of mafias masquerading as MPs, especially in the NRM, few in the opposition. 2025, just await how government will hide money due to elections. People like Paul O'Mara, I pray Otuke should think twice, otherwise we are a dead country under a dead system and the control of one man. This is Orlando from Mokono. Okay, that is Orlando there. Another person sends in a message and says, Andrew Mwenda, I love his intellectual insight. Can he start a school so that that kind of knowledge can be passed on? This is Okirol Juma Abbas from Katakwi. Andrew, you need to start a school. Silva says, today I agree with Andrew. Talking about the roads and the connections, Bwera is very, very poor, undeveloped in Kasese and in some other areas. What's the use of this road development fund money if it's not meant for development? That's Silva. Lastly, Wandera George says, thank you for the program. Actually, 2024 has a political intelligence that was high, whereas the economic intelligence was very poor. E.g., still children in candidate classes with more exams and cause corruption by their teachers, yet there are district inspectors everywhere. On the other hand, if Bobby Wine visits any place in Uganda, they deploy the army and the police. This is Wandera George. Let's take a quick break and keep your messages coming, and we'll be continuing this conversation after this quick break.
To be a winner, it requires that you exceed all the limits of mankind and womankind. But when you play with MTN Momo, winning is easy. Simply get your phone and use the Momo app or dial *165*3#, enter merchant code, enter amount, enter your Momo PIN, and pay. Congratulations, easy! Your stomach is full, and now you stand a chance to win mobile money with MTN Momo.
the parish development model launched in 2022 by President Yoweri Museveni to fight poverty and enhance service delivery at the parish level has disbursed over 1 trillion Uganda shillings to more than 10,500 circles, benefiting over 1 million individuals countrywide. The government of Uganda appreciates you for embracing PDM and using it to move away from Okorera Ekida Kyonka. You are encouraged to continue participating in this journey towards socio-economic transformation.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachikuwa. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda, haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Nkwanga Ramazan is my name, the head teacher of this great school, Ikumbia Seed Secondary School. The school has the staff room well furnished, administration well furnished, the computer lab well furnished, the library wonderful, the multipurpose hall well furnished. The teachers are also enjoying in the staff quarters. The school has teachers totaling to 28. Ikumbia Seed has embraced the new curriculum. I want to thank the government for that bright idea. There are many students that end up in senior 4 with no document. But with the coming of the IT, the skill children are going to have certificates in skills as early as senior 3. And that certificate is equivalent to a senior 4 certificate. Ikumbia Seed Secondary School is a very great school that has influenced the lives of people or changed the lives of people of Ikumbia sub-county. I want to thank the parents and the government for this kind of input.
Come back from that quick commercial break. Even off air, the conversation still continues. My name is Timothy NYANGWESO. In the studio, I'm joined by the old man of the clan, 112 years old, oldest in the country, Mr. Andrew Mwenda, the CEO of the Independent Magazine, Professor Sarah Sali, the Institute of Gender and Women's Studies has changed. Development Studies. We better get a new title for that one. Honorable Omara Paul, representing the people of Otuke County, a member of the Finance and Budget Committees, Dr. Sarah Birete, the ED at the Center for Constitutional Governance, and the Honorable Minister of State in charge of National Guidance and ICT. Just 2 messages and we get to our questions here. There is no equal development in the country as far as roads are concerned. Abim in particular has the worst roads ever. Okay. Hello Timothy, thank you for a well-selected panel. To some extent, I agree with the president because our police force has lost it. Every concerned citizen knows the threat we are having because of thieves. People are no longer sleeping. Thank you for the messages. Keep them coming. Our X platform and also the number to WhatsApp us is 0709 60 25 92. Andrew, let me come to you. When you look at 2025 and you have seen what has happened in the opposition, FDC's breakaway, PFF coming there, civil groups coming in, including your very own PLU, Democratic Alliance coming in there. In hindsight, this is an electoral year. What do you see?
Can I first be allowed to respond to some of the issues that were raised earlier, then I come to this politics. I want to come to the issue of the new management at KCCA. I don't want us to create a false impression that the problems of Kampala begin with the administration of KCCA.
No, it's not.
Because the bad roads in Kampala, you can as well change and bring Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg to run Kampala. For as long as you don't give them money, they will not fill potholes. It's that simple. So the previous management, the new management that is coming in, I think are irrelevant to the crisis in Kampala. They may fix small tactical issues here and there, but without government of Uganda making it a priority to fund the capital city of the country, Kampala will remain the garbage dump that it has become. You see, when NRM took over power in 1986, the GDP of Uganda was, I think, 2.1 billion. If you adjust it to inflation to 2024 prices,
about $3.5 billion.
But yeah, because that government was fixing the exchange rate. So what you need to do to know the Uganda's actual exchange rate, GDP, you have to go to when they floated the shilling in 1992 and get what was Uganda's GDP. Then begin calculating the growth from 86 to 92, it will go back to about 2.1 billion. You adjust it to inflation, it comes to about 4.5 billion in 1986. In 2020, for prices, Uganda's GDP right now, okay, by October 2023, IMF was saying 58 billion. Uganda government, I think, says 56. I use IMF figures so that I can have one consistent reference point. So it's 58 billion. So the economy has grown 12 times, right? The population has grown barely 3 times because three and a half times. So this has been phenomenal success. What I cannot understand is how the growth, both in revenue per capita, income per capita, and overall size of the economy, is not reflected in the quality of the capital city, because 64% of Uganda's GDP and 75% of Uganda's total tax revenues are generated from Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono districts. Yeah. So you need to, so in other words, the most productive citizens of Uganda, when I talk of productive, I mean productivity, output per unit, labor input, right? A peasant cultivating in their garden may produce a value of 10,000 shillings for a whole day of cultivation. And a person using their brain here in Kampala on a computer may generate maybe $1,000. This is 4 million worth in a day. So you need to make these highly productive people be able to move from home to office, and because they use creativity and intellectual talent as their primary driver, not manual labor, they need an environment that reduces their stress so they can think creatively and do better. If you are stuck in traffic in the morning 2 hours, in the evening 2 hours,
that's 4.
Then those are 4 hours, those are 4 man hours lost out of daily output. But you're not losing only that. When a guy enters office when he's stressed, he cannot work to his optimum capacity. Maybe they work at 30% because they're stressed. They have fallen into potholes. Their car is filled with garbage. Then the shock absorbers are broken. Either they're in the garage, because if they're not in the garage to fix the shock absorbers, the mechanics will steal parts. I mean, this government has created a disaster for its economy. So it is just a self-defeating neglect of Kampala, because Kampala is the goose that lays the golden egg of growth and even revenue that finances the other priority needs. What I cannot understand is how the whole country, if Museveni is the problem, how can it be that permanent secretaries, MPs, all of us elites, somehow have bent to the will or incompetence or disinterest, because it's not really incompetence, I think Museveni is not interested in Kampala, of one 80-year-old man. That is a problem one I wanted to point out. That the new management of KCCA, I want to tell you as you come in, I have so much sympathy for you, because they will throw you into a boxing ring with your hands tied behind, and you will not be able to box anybody there. You'll just have a salary and that's it. 2, rationalization. Please don't think too much about rationalization, because if we were to go on the drawing board, we should ask ourselves, okay, you want to carry out rationalization in order to save money, to increase the government performance. How much money is likely to be saved that was being spent on these bonds?
From the government, they say 1 trillion shillings.
Really? Find out. Find out. But please don't listen to government. It is likely they're not even going to save 200 billion. In any case, if government of Uganda is serious about containing runaway expenditure, this country, in the last 2 years, we have given Magola 736 billion. Am I wrong? 736 billion. 780 billion for
a pharmaceutical
plant, which we are not sure it will come out. But even when we paid his loans, ask Equity Bank, he has not. He colluded with people in the Ministry of Finance. Instead of sending money to Equity Bank, he sent it to, I think, Eco Bank and put in a fixed deposit. He has not even paid the debts, which we gave him money to pay. We have given 560 billion to Atiak Sugar. Everybody will tell you, you can even spend 10% of that money and have a sugar factory, or maybe 20%. We invested 200 billion in Rocco when it had already gone bankrupt. We have got 1.3 trillion pumped into a hospital we don't need. We have just refurbished Malawi. Why not improve the quality there? Why go build Lubon? The Aga Khan is building another highly advanced hospital. Why? So it is not that the country doesn't have money to build roads in Kampala, they're just throwing the money all over the place. And they're not using it properly. So the second issue is rationalization is a struggle over power. That power had shifted from ministries to these agencies. These people are struggling to bring power back. And they're trying to say there is money to be saved. I'm willing to go sit down and calculate how much they were spending on each of these boards. Are they saying that they're going to fire all the workers?
No, actually government has the duty to
So if the government is going to absorb them, is it going to cut their salaries by 90% and make them paupers? You're going to get engineers and pay them nothing? Anyway, the rationalization is poorly thought out. I don't mind them taking these functions back to ministries if the ministries are well organized and people are properly incentivized to do good work. But it is not true that they will be saving money, because how much does a board, even if there are 100 agencies you are closing, how much does it cost to sustain a board in a month or in a year? It can't even be $1 billion, trust me, it can't even be $1 billion for a board. So if the maximum they can do is 100 billion, you get what I mean? Anyway, that 100 billion does not exist. The third point I wanted to raise is, if Museveni seriously takes rationalization, why is he creating all these agencies at State House then? These new functions. And it's not even the money he's spending there. It is a duplication, triplication, even quintuplication of service. You have IGG, you have PPDA, you have Parliamentary Oversight Committees, you have Anti-Corruption Office, you have Crime Intelligence, you have criminal investigations, you have ISO, CMI. We have investigations of corruption everywhere. Why? Why can't you begin by stopping there? Then we can understand, why are you dividing every village into a district and creating a stadium-sized parliament and a cabinet that can fill Nambole? I mean, these are the things, and it's not even the money. People think that those things take a lot of money. It is simple that they create too much redundance and political patronage. That is not necessary. What this country needs is to have a government. By the way, I should tell you, I don't even think that we have enough employees of government. As a share of the population, in Uganda we have 1.8 government employees for every 100 citizens. Because our population is 47 million, the total public sector is about less than 500,000 people. So if you look at countries like Norway, they have 11 people for every 11 government employees for every 100,000. For every they have.
But what is the GDP? They have enough money.
Yeah, but of course, even the salaries may be they may be symmetric to their GDP. Here we pay salaries of 600,000. Maybe there they pay them salaries of 30 million. Do you see? But the point I'm trying to make is that we have a very lean state in Uganda. It is very thin on the ground. And that is even, so the problem of the size of the state is not there. What is there is that the state lacks a purpose to serve the common good. That the elected members of parliament in Uganda, you see the way the political system in Uganda is organized is for NRM to retain power, it trades private goods to private individuals in exchange for them delivering the bloc support of their ethnics. You are an Acholi, you are a Mutoro, you are Japadon, Samia. We put Timothy NYANGWESO there, then Timothy, all the Basania will vote the government. Meanwhile, Timothy NYANGWESO, what he gets are private benefits, a cabinet, a big job, opportunities to profit through corruption. Then the Bataso say, our son is in power, so they vote for him. You see, this is the way politics of Uganda is organized, democratic politics. The trade is in private goods in exchange for power. There is very little trade in public goods in order to consolidate power. And that is something that Uganda needs to think about. The final one is on Umeme. I don't think that Umeme was badly contracted. One day you should call me, I'll come here on this show and give a thesis. The circumstances that led the provisions of the contract of Umeme to be like that. I'll give you an example. At the time government takes, rather Umeme is privatized, the biggest defaulter to Umeme was the government of Uganda. Ministries, State House, Defense, Police, they were not paid. So in the agreement they put there that if government does not pay, you get the World Bank put up a fund. You remember there was an escrow account, you can draw money from there. You get. Is that a bad thing? It was to impose discipline on the government. Now when that provision was removed, whenever government doesn't pay, Umeme does not transfer money to a government entity called Uganda Electoral Transmission Company. Government of Uganda needs to have the discipline. Pay your bills. I can go to each and every single sector. When Umeme came here, government of Uganda advertised for concession of our electoral distribution. You know what happened when they advertised it? 6 companies responded. They expressed interest. They came here and did due diligence. 6 of them left Uganda and said they're not interested. One company, a British government parastatal called CDC, wrote a letter, which I have on my phone here, to government of Uganda, saying we came, studied your thing, we won't invest and nobody will invest. Why? You have a line that it has been moribund for 30 years, you have not improved it. So technical losses are very high. It requires huge investments for anybody to invest in your goddamn thing. People think Umeme was an attractive thing. Nobody was interested in it 24 years ago. 2, your prices are very low and they have not changed for 10 years. In spite of inflation, domestic inflation and foreign exchange depreciation. If you try to increase the price, people demonstrate on the streets. You have put up a regulator who sets the price. He's supposed to be independent. Government intervenes and tells the regulator to reduce the price. The market is dead. So anyway, government of Uganda went with a very weak negotiating hand because of its own mismanagement. People forget. So what Umeme did, it reformed the energy distribution sector in Uganda. And within 10 years, when they went to launch an IPO, you know an IPO? Initial public offering to launch on the stock exchange, it was oversubscribed by 157%. Within 10 years of all international investors refusing to put their money into Umeme, now you had all international investors putting money into Umeme. The second public offering, when it came, of the 10 leading firms that were willing to buy into Umeme, these were equity funds. Their combined amount of money, funds under management, was $1.6 trillion. Uganda's GDP is 58 billion. So what you can hang me, I can tell you Umeme has played a fundamental role in making the electricity distribution market in Uganda highly attractive. So what is the problem of electricity pricing? Omar, let me explain to you where the mistake is. Umeme contributes only 30% to the electricity tariff. 30%. 65% is contributed by electricity generation. 5% by transmission. Why are we complaining about a guy who contributes 30%, not one who contributes 65%? But even that is an irrelevant point. It is about government policy. What is the government position on electricity tariff? Government of Uganda said electricity is a private good that should be sold at market prices in the market. It should be sold at prices where you can recover both your operation expenses and your capital expenditure and make a profit on it. That is the government policy of Uganda. So we proceeded to use market dynamics to price electricity. The result is electricity became very expensive. Across Africa, with the exception of Seychelles, all African countries subsidize electricity. They consider it a public good, the way you look at the road. Do you people pay to use the road? Do you, and a lot of other public infrastructure like health services, education services are provided largely for free. We don't pay teachers in the government schools. You get it? So government can make a decision and say, electricity is a public good. We need it for purposes A, B, C, D, F, G. So we will subsidize the price of electricity. The consumer does not need to pay for the total cost of capital investment, the total cost of financing costs, which is interest on loans, plus operating expenses. The consumer will pay for only operating expenses. That's a policy decision. It's not a Umeme decision. Okay. Umeme does not set electricity tariffs. Umeme, they are set by ERA, Electoral Regulatory Authority, and a policy that this is a commercial pricing. Now, let me come to the issue. of government taking over Umeme through UEDCL. They were owning Umeme, these people, through UEB. Do you remember UEB? You would apply to get electricity in your house, pay a bribe, wait for 2 years, they will not bring a line there. They have not filling potholes in Kampala. First of all, I believe government should control things like this. But I'm dealing with a generic government. I want to deal with a specific government called a government of Uganda, led by NRM and Yoweri Museveni. Potholes everywhere. So, tomorrow, they will not invest in poles to take electricity to your house. They will not invest in transformers to ensure that the electricity is stabilized. They will, when it comes to procurement of anything, they will be involved with IGG, PPDA, Parliament will make a speech. There will be so many quarrels, it will last 10 months, 2 years, before they can do anything. Because, guys, you need to understand the government we are facing. In 2015, that's exactly 10 years ago, I Andrew Mwenda, chaired an investor conference on the Jinja-Kampala Expressway. When it finished that conference, commencement of construction was supposed to be 2019. Completion 2024. Have they awarded the contract to build the Jinja-Kampala Expressway? No. You get it? You are telling me this by the one who's going to be investing in electricity distribution in a timely manner? So let me continue, guys, because you see.
Just 1 minute. I think on matters electricity, we need a special day.
Yes.
Electricity. I have a lot to say about that because you see what has happened in the past. Many of these so-called investors came and took advantage of Uganda when we were at our lowest. I give you an example of Jagali. They came, they said, we cannot invest the risk for us. In fact, government of Uganda put its own money there, about $19 million, to start even building Bujagali. These guys came with very little money, but you need to see the contract.
Okay, I'm going to make sure. I'm going to make sure that
just like Umeme,
yes,
Bujagali took advantage of Uganda. We did an investigation. They owe us 1.2 trillion shillings. They have not paid a penny. We pay $5.5 million every month. We should be paying 3.
Okay.
So on energy, I've become a mini expert, and I would want to.
Honorable Ma, what we're going to do?
Let's not dwell much on this one.
We're not going to dwell on it, but in March around this, we'll come and discuss it.
Yes.
And Andrew, please complete your point.
So this just to complete my point. You see, what I want my grandson Omar, you know. He does not know that for us, Matoro, we came from Acholi there and Lango, especially Lango. That's where we came from. He doesn't know this so much. I'm going to take him to my home. You'll find there my nephew Ochaki,
let's complete
Ochaya, Oli. But let me tell you this. Right now, if you are German government, you are going to buy a bond. If you are a private investor, you are going to buy a German bond. You buy it at 0.4%. It is below the rate of inflation. Basically, you are paying the government of Germany to lend it money.
Yes.
If you want a 10-year bond from the government of Uganda, it is 17.9%.
Actually,
18%. 17.9 and 18, really, the difference is 0. Is too small. But let me ask you, Omar, why does Uganda borrow money from me at 18%, the government of Germany borrows at 0.4% below the rate of inflation? Because Uganda's risk profile is very high and it's capital scarce. So those contracts, we have to understand them. They were signed in a very specific context.
Okay.
That what has happened, in fact what Umeme has done.
We need a day. We need
yes.
Okay.
Let me conclude my
please conclude.
What Umeme has done is to make the sector, Uganda, the distribution of electricity in Uganda, a very attractive proposition that you can have huge volumes of private investment willing to come into Uganda to invest.
And what Uganda should do, I agree.
What Uganda should do is to say, how do we sustain this reputation of this market? But they can't, because I can tell you, with their potholes in Kampala, with all these things they're failing to run, I don't think they're going to run electricity distribution. I don't want to be a prophet of doom. I pray that I am wrong.
Andrew,
because
we'll make you the GM of UDC.
I don't want.
Okay, allow me to bring in Professor. Professor, when you look at 2025, what are your expectations?
Wow.
Politically, socially, and economically?
Well, politically, as I said earlier, people are going to begin politicking because 2026 is not very far.
Yeah.
So we are going to see more people posturing, but also visiting the communities, I mean, there are those who are really there, who look like they're credible and they can win the elections. But you're going to see many posturing, because even on our WhatsApp groups, we are beginning to get posters, and all the posters are honorable so and so 2026 to 2031. And you just wonder what it will look like by this time next year. So you're going to see that the effect of that is you're going to have a lot of people raising accountability. And how do they raise this? By highlighting the crimes of the incumbents. Sometimes those crimes are justified, but sometimes actually it is a way of bringing down the incumbent as a way of making yourself look better if you are an aspiring. So you're going to see that. Of course, we're going to have many more things in terms of whistleblowers and reporting what has gone wrong. As I said, we have had a lot of civic activism in 2014. The online activism, the kind of the parliamentary exhibition, the roads exhibitions. I expect to see more of that, especially given that Dr. Spire Sentongo won an award in the US for those kinds of activities. Agatha at Haire has also been running a lot of Agora talk shows with her friends, the Godwin Talkers. So we are going to see more of that, especially given that going on the streets may not be very possible. It hasn't been possible for a very long time. So they are going online in terms of hosting Twitter spaces and exhibiting there is a response to their inability to be allowed permission to be on the streets. But on the economy, we are still going to continue struggling. Of course, there's this whole belief, there's a correlation between politicking and more pilfering of funds or more scarcity in terms of service delivery. But maybe on the good side, probably we might see that with if those who are actually accessing the funds can do better for the community, probably we shall have more services. But I also don't want us to overlook what Andrew and Honorable Mara have just said. The debate actually they are having, the contestation they are having actually shows you the same debate people have had about neoliberalism and its ability to deliver states from poverty. Because these ideologies, these theories, these philosophies are not emanating here. These philosophies are coming from the capitalistic world, which actually I'm not sure they are very interested in the developing world catching up. One of the big challenges they had after independence, after the 1960s, were all these newly independent states occupying the UN, but who were very poor. Because in the past, when they talked to League of Nations, these were around 4 or 5 people who control the world. But now you have more of these people claiming equal status, but not really having the financial muscle, because those who control the financial muscle had now been thrown out of the economy. So on the one hand, you have people like Andrew who says actually Umeme did a lot, but maybe if we counted, I don't know that he has discounted the cost of infrastructure, because we tend to over-celebrate the market sometimes, forgetting that actually the state is the one putting in, or while we are counting the monies being counted or being declared by the private sector, we sometimes forget the capital investments and infrastructure the state is putting in. And a lot of what we are seeing in the developed system now is many of the donors, many of the so-called investors don't want to go into capital investment. They want things that are finished. That's why I was telling you that when they came, they found Uganda was not worth it. But of course, on the other hand, you have to ask who has the interests of the citizen at heart. It is the state with whom the people have a social contract. It is the state which will remain even when the people go. It's true the state has problems in terms of accountability, in terms of financial prudence, and it will have those very many things. But at the end of the day, people demand accountability from the state. They don't demand accountability from the private sector. But as I said earlier, I think Uganda needs, maybe economists need to sit down and rethink what kind of models we are running on. Because 30 years ever since we had neoliberalism, people don't remember that actually the state can do something. That's why Ugandans never tend to demand much from the state, really. Because many Ugandans don't remember a time when the state provided these services. So it is easy for you to say the state has done nothing. But ideally, the state does a lot that we don't count. It is the state that provides where the market will not go. The market doesn't go into rural areas. The market will not go into slum area. Okay, if there is money to make in the slum and quick money, they will do that. And you see, given our kind of history coming from a state of conflict it's true that the investors we attracted were those who could make money out of their situations very fast and go. So I hope with 2025 that we have attained some level of stability, some level of infrastructure. Probably, as he's saying, we shall have investors who are more meaningful and are ready to do better. But of course, we always have our colleagues who always raise alarms now that we're going to go into an election. So there will be a lot of people doing, what are they called? They always do opinion polls that to tell us, oh, how maybe there's going to be a crisis in 2026, or we don't know what the election is going to be, probably insecurity is likely to increase, and etc., etc. And so this may again scare off some of the investors who may have thought of coming. But I think for 2025 to be very gainful, the matters people have raised should be looked into, particularly corruption. You know, we cannot think of making the local populations gainfully, very productive, if the cost of doing business is high. Sometimes investors actually have tax holidays, but our people do not have tax holidays. I've been here and I've complained of VAT in Uganda being around 18%, VAT in Nigeria 6%. So the cost of doing business in some of those places is better than here, and different African countries have talked about it. Of course, when we were here, the Director General of URA said it's because they have a bigger population. But you see, if you squeeze the few that are producing into not being productive, then you actually lose it. I can just give just one example. In a country like the UK, if you have a very big tax bill that you haven't paid for a long time, the solution from the tax body will not be to shut you down. It will be to sit with you and negotiate how you can repay that loan. For us here, URA comes and you shut down. So those people go out of employment, their families continue to suffer. So some of the policies we have, come 2025, have to change. They have to change with the view of making a Ugandan productive, not to simply say this is our target. For us, we are not reducing our expenditure, and Ugandans, you must match up, and we are going to squeeze the last drop of blood from you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mara, let's look at something closer to home. One of the things that is going to happen, and Dr. Sarah is here, is especially nomination come September and October of this year. Languaging, especially when you, the politicians, the actors are there, but also the undertones of tribal sentiments. How do we end this, especially because of something Andrew said? Any learnings we can pick from Rwanda's genocide in '94, that it doesn't occur here?
I think the players, we the politicians must agree that we only have one country. We don't have any other. We have learned from our neighbors the result of political instability. Rwanda is a case in point. Burundi, South Sudan, what is happening there? I think we have had our own cup of tea here in Uganda. So issues of tribalism, of violence, and any other statements that would cause fear and rumor mongering, I think should be minimized, or if not at all, eliminated. But most of the times when the competition becomes tough, people tend to say things, but I think there should be an agreement between all parties that election is going to happen in January next year, but the activities will start this year. So it requires sobriety, really, for us to, and if you look at it carefully, we have remained an island of peace.
Who leads this sobriety?
Remember there was...
because let's speak of it bluntly.
Yes.
Remiaga, just recently.
Yes.
Honorable Sechikubo and the Honorable Joy Kawatsi.
Yes.
It was no good scenes to see.
It wasn't, but remember, if you look at the presidential level, there were the group of elders that organized the presidential debate, and the candidates, each one of them was asked, to agree and make a solemn vote to the country that as far as I'm as a candidate and the party I lead, we shall, work for peace. We shall not create any violence. I think President Museveni was equally there. Now, when it comes to individual constituencies, I think either it's between the parties or independents, but I think as leaders we must be accountable. And of course, the rule of law, the arms of the law will be there to make sure that those who create violence, I think you face the full force of the law. So I think the politicians just need to make sure that when we run an election, it's not about winning by all means.
And lastly, before I come to Dr. Sarah, money circulation,
yes.
The commercialization of our politics.
Yes.
If numbers, Andrew likes to go by IMF numbers, unfortunately we don't have those ones for MPs.
Yes.
If we throw a number, hypothetically, between 500 to 1 billion shillings
yes.
to become a member of parliament,
yes.
what impact does that have on the economy?
At one time, I don't remember which one, was it 2016 elections where there was hyperinflation in Uganda and there was a rioting downtown because too much money was used. This money were dished out. They did not produce anything. Too much money chasing few goods, it basically created hyperinflation. And I remember the late governor, Mutebile, had to put his foot there and said, you know, I'm going to burn the fingers. He just basically allowed the bank rate to continue. And the lending rate went up to about 35%. The president was very concerned at the time, but the borrowers suffered. Those who had loans with the banks, you actually find you have a limited income, actually constant income, but your repayments to the bank has gone up, maybe twice or 3 times. It created a lot of problems in the private sector and amongst the salary earners. So I think use of money, we have not put in a law in place on the political financing. In the US, they have a term for it. But that here, we literally have no control. People will spend the money the way they want. Those in government will also spend the money. My brother there, who has an office. So people will spend money. There's no control around it. But it can be controlled from government side. From Bank of Uganda, it can also be controlled by government through basically a fiscal policy, where less money is released in the economy, we withhold certain expenditures so that we maintain a stable inflation. But I want to agree with you that too much money during election is not good for the economy, because you create unnecessary inflation if it is too much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Sarah, you observed elections in 2024. Over 60 elections happened in the last season. I also saw you make a tribute to President Jimmy Carter. When you look at our elections, the ordinary Ugandan, how do we make sure that they are the beneficiaries of these elections? Because at the end of the day, it's a packet of salt, it's a bar of soap, we become that gullible. How do we make sure that this electoral cycle is different for us not to just get a packet of salt for a vote and an attrition rate of 60 or over in parliament, but Ugandans benefit with the good leaders they need?
I think maybe the conversation that we need to have as a country is the minimum standard of an election. Because sometimes what happens in Uganda does not qualify to even be called an election. We need to agree on minimum standards below which that exercise should be disregarded and nullified. So that we are still standard. And unless we have this conversation, then the citizen you are referring to will never benefit from democracy the way it is envisaged to be. Basically what we have because of commercialization of politics is a grand auction. It is not an election. The highest bidder, the one who can bribe the villagers the most, will go through. Some MPs spend 2 to 6 billion to get elected from previous report. Some MPs spent 2 billion, others spent 6 billion just to become a member of parliament. It's craziness. We need to cap the minimum amount politicians should use per seat. We have been, advocating for reforms that are yet to come. and the culture with Parliament is that, and maybe executive, which should bring these reforms, is that for every election, reforms are enacted, on the 9th hour, and those reforms cannot impact the election because there is no time for implementation of these reforms, and we are likely to go into a similar scenario. So it's just a tick box activity for the executive, for Parliament, when it comes to electoral reforms. When you look at, for example, the election we observed going into elections, they were using gadgets for voter identification, digital voter identification. But those gadgets were able to operate on cells because they were, factored in to cover the rural and urban areas. Power challenges, penetration. Not that Ghana doesn't have power, but they did not want the election to run into any problem. And those gadgets were effective. You put in your fingerprint or your biodata comes through. Even they were able to tabulate. You just press the gadget, you see the number of people that have voted, gender disaggregated data, how many female, how many male. And these gadgets are cheaper than the, the gadgets we bought where we didn't have internet, 50% of them didn't work. Also, Kenya had very good, equipment, but worked on satellite, using satellite internet, which is more expensive. So we need to look at these digital options that are affordable, that are applicable in our context, and we should be able to fully digitalize our elections for accountability. Because we have also had scenarios where courts demand for accountability of how people voted, and that record does not exist. So what's the essence of digitalizing elections if you cannot have a backup that can verify the actual will of the people on who should govern them? So these are some of the gaps that we have in our elections. But broader on democracy, I think the biggest issue we have, even riding into elections, is a level playing field. I want to give a simple example. Of course, we know the human rights. Dr. Besigye has spent Christmas and New Year in prison. We know the violence that is going to be meted on opposition. Unfortunately, it will be worse than previous. That's my prediction, unfortunately. But when you look at the level playing field, I want to take a simple example of implementation of the Political Parties and Organizations Act. Section 14A. First clause provides that during the year of elections, taxpayers' money should be distributed to political parties who are represented in Parliament equally during an election year. This has never happened. Every election year, Ministry of Finance connives with the Electoral Commission to steal taxpayers' money for NRM. And NRM gets 80% of those resources, when the other parties go away with nothing. This clause of the Political Parties and Organizations Act, Honorable Mara, we want it implemented next year. If finance connives with the Electoral Commission to steal taxpayers' money for NRM, us as NGOs, we are going to court.
Okay. Let me say...
Yeah, okay, it's this year. Because, sorry, it's this year.
Dr. Sarah, before I come to the Honorable Minister, there is a proposal by Honorable Jacob Oboth about amendments in the UPDF Act. Something on the High Command, something with the court martial, the changes in there. There's also a rumor about the media. What's the spirit behind some of these amendments and legislations that are being suggested by government?
Well, as far as the UPDF is concerned, in 2015, the African Court on Human and People's Rights, sitting in Abuja, ruled that Uganda should amend its UPDF Act and remove all clauses that concern citizens. This is now 10 years ago. They gave government of Uganda 6 months to amend the UPDF Act and remove all provisions that talk about civilians. up to today, the crisis we have is use of court martial for political persecution in this country. If those amendments are aimed at strengthening this oppressive tool, I can assure you can oppress some people sometimes. But when this country ruptures into violence, you will be responsible for your actions of repressing Ugandans.
Very strong words there. Honorable Minister, let me come to you.
I thought the amendment was to correct, not to...
I don't think they are correcting.
The details, we hope that one day we can have the minister to give us the details. But, Honorable Minister, one is if you have details, especially on that amendment of the UPDF Act, and secondly, one, we saw very uncouth elections, by-elections in Kisoro. It has happened over. We saw uncouth primaries in 2021 in the NRM. Why should Ugandans give you another mandate?
First of all, let me assure Ugandans that this country will not explode into any confusion. Or
what guarantees do you have, Honorable Minister?
We are in charge as
Respect
government.
people's rights.
We are in charge as government.
Respect people's
yes,
rights.
we are going to respect people's rights, but other people should also respect other people's rights. Because people always think it is government which violates rights. But there are also some individuals who violate other people's what? Rights. But because government is the supreme, every time there is anything to do with government, probably it explodes. But there are others who are also violate other people's rights. So me, I would like to appeal to everybody that let us respect each other's rights, and whether you are government or you are not. And I would like to assure the nation that we are not going to explode in any violence. We are in charge as government, and we shall assure that one doesn't appear. On those amendments, they haven't reached cabinet, so I will not discuss in anticipation. But we have not yet received any paper in cabinet on amendments of UPDF. The media is under my docket. We haven't even processed anything to do with the media. So you personalities in the media, you should remain calm. When it comes to elections in NRM, what happened in Kisoro, you know, elections is a competitive process. And you should know, Timothy, that when there is competition, there are also faults. That's why there is a referee. In a playing field, there is always a what? A referee. Otherwise, if you leave the game without a referee, people will come out with broken legs. Even in a football what? A football match. But that's why there is a referee. And the most important thing, if you want the game to flow very well, you must have a competent what? Referee. So what we need now is a competent electoral commission which can really supervise these elections. As far as NRM is concerned, what you saw in Kisoro and what you have seen, what you saw in 2021, we condemn some of what happened. And as NRM, where me and Omara belong, we are trying to see how we can make reforms, our own internal reforms. That's why now we are digitizing our what? Our register.
So that 18 million Ugandans.
Yes, 18 million Ugandans. And they may even be more than that. We are trying to digitize our register so that really there is a free and fair internal elections. Because we are trying to avoid people coming up as independents and yet NRM leaning. So we are going to work out on that. But let me also say, you know, we've been talking about commercialization of politics. And we think Uganda is doing very badly. You know, worldwide, politics is commercialized. But it depends on where the money goes. Like the recent elections in the United States, the money went into media. And you saw a biased media.
Yes.
Up to the end of the elections, Trump was treated...
was losing.
was losing because the media was totally biased. And when you go behind the headlines of that election, you find that the media was bought, bribed to really taint Trump as a very bad man. So you see, the money was pumped in the elections, but it went into the what? Into media. Here, money probably is pumped into elections, and it goes to the voter.
To the voter.
That's the only difference, that it goes to the voter. And now the voter has also become smart enough. Why? Because MPs have shown the voter that they get a lot of money. And the voter is saying, give me my share. Because he knows when you go, you will not what?
You also have to build the churches.
Exactly. You also have to build the church.
The primary school.
You must build the primary school.
The water borehole.
So all that is because the voter feels this man is going, he may not do what? Come back. So this is the time for him to do all this. All this. But I'm telling you, these MPs you see there in Parliament are bleeding.
They're broke.
But it's their own making.
Very broke. It's their own making, yes, I accept that. But they are very broke. I have a friend, a pay slip was, recently showed me a pay slip was getting around 50,000 shillings. Because money is going to money lenders, the banks, and the like. And if we don't sit down and look into that, the country is not doing well. I think there must be, among the reforms,
Yes.
among the reforms which we should come up with during elections,
Yes.
let us ban all these fundraisings
Yes.
and all those activities where people want to siphon money from the candidates. But you will not eliminate commercialization completely.
Bans fundraisings after nomination.
They sometimes do.
You disguise and go ahead. So that's why I'm saying it's self-inflicted injury. You suffer.
That's what
Okay.
I'm saying. That you will not going to eliminate it because politics has become very competitive. Sometimes you even wonder, we who are in it, you even wonder why that competition.
Yes.
Because it may not be
Yes.
worth it, but everybody who is not there wants to come there because he thinks there is a lot to do what? To gain.
Thank you very much. Let me read some feedback that has come through so that I give you parting shots. Good evening, Timothy. Responding to Andrew's observation, the GDP does not talk to the reality of the masses. The truth is that the GDP is deceptive. As a casual, I look at it, 100 top taxpayers will show you the biggest part of GDP to foreigners. Let's compute the GDP, the gross national product, which captures the Uganda's actual produce, and that will give you the reality. This is Benjamin in Kampala. Government can do well if it chooses to do so. Look at how efficient it has become to process a driving permit or even get a passport. So I can comfortably conclude government's inefficiencies are deliberate evidence of its poor leadership. Okay? Thank you for the show. This is Biarhanga from Bara. If there was a salaries commission to determine the salaries of parliamentarians together with other government workers, competition for parliament would reduce, and when the appetite reduces, we can get the best and the richest in mind for parliament. The Honorable I thank Dr. Sarah Berete for the submission made. Until we answer the question of bad leadership, Uganda will still remain facing the challenge of human rights violations, high public debt, corruption, poor education, unemployment, economic crisis. This is Alan Mayanja Sembuya in Nakaseke. Honorable Minister for Information is not informed that the UPDF Amendment Bill 2024 was presented before Parliament for first reading. Okay. Happy New Year, Timothy and the panel. Very special thanks to Andrew for his immense knowledge. And why doesn't he put his head to building this country? Dr. NYANGWESO.
Their regime is coming.
Oh, their regime is coming. Well done, Timothy, and Happy New Year. Why has the president failed to see wisdom in Andrew and Dr. Sarah, given that the ministerial roles, or he prefers cheerleaders only? My own Honorable Omara started well, but he is also degenerating into a cheerleader. Yet he's one of the best minds in Lango. Anyway, the only issue is that all state institutions have been weakened, most sympathetic. Parliament is just a rubber stamp. Situations of the president to be relevant, and constitutionalism. Okay, this is MP. This is Honorable Hamson. This is Ongom Oscar. As you said, people are busy posturing. Mary in Kampala. Whenever I watch Behind the Headlines program and watch Dr. Sarah Sari, I'm always impressed by the level of appreciation and concept of her calmness and professionalism, peculiar and outstanding knowledge levels. She is just the best. Okay,
oh, thank
Dr.
you.
Sarah. And finally, because Umeme also operates in other African countries and provides electricity at low cost, this is Hassan from Nansana. What does that mean? Why are we frustrated if government policies are not working? Okay, a lot of messages have come through and we really appreciate that, but I'll give the panel parting shots of 2 minutes. I'll start with Andrew, Professor Sarah, Honorable Mara, Dr. Sarah, and finally the Honorable Minister. Andrew, over to you.
I'm wishing all of you a happy and prosperous 2025.
Thank you very much. Brief and precise. Is your government coming? They said something about your government.
At the next show.
we have left out a few things for another day. Professor Sarah, your parting shots.
Yeah, my parting shot, thank you, is we should not underestimate the impact of population rise and what that means for our people. In 1994, we were around 20 million. Right now, we are more than 40. So within a short period of time, we have more than doubled. Of course, it's likely to create pressure in all aspects of life, whether social, whether political, whether economic. So I think focusing on how to settle this population and make it productive is going to continue to be a challenge in terms of service delivery, but also financial inclusion. But also another thing we should not forget, even as we blame the top, even as we blame leadership, is the whole aspect of political economy of things. Everyone at every level has interests, and some of these interests are the very interests they are blaming the top for. So if we want a clean system, let's do like what Rudy Giuliani did to clean up New York, zero tolerance to the smallest of crimes. So I think let us all reflect and make sure we are ready to subdue our interests to the major interests of the country. Otherwise, we shall continue crying about the top but committing the same crimes below. I think those are my parting shots. Otherwise, I wish everybody a happy and fruitful and very productive 2025 with good health, wisdom, and wealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mara.
Thank you very much, Timothy. Maybe 3 points. One thing which is silently hurting the country, I think, which we have to consider a policy reversal or to actually improve on it, is our policy on science teachers, on science. Most of the primary teachers are leaving teaching. They're going into something else. And the number of teachers in our schools are going down. So we need to, I think, look at that policy. And every headmasters, I was in Otuka, I met teachers, and they're saying it's seriously affecting how the schools are running. So we need to review that thing seriously, and we'll discuss it, Honorable Minister, in the caucus. The second one is we had projected that this year, by September, our oil would start flowing. I think that has been too much to ask. We might not have oil flowing this year. If you look at the budget for this financial year, 57% of our budget is going towards debt servicing. That's almost 41.9 I think 5 trillion. And we cannot continue. The sustainability of our debt will be a big problem without support coming from oil revenues. So right now we're going to go into the budget paper discussions. Then the budget process takes almost about 5 months. Considering that this year's budget was 72 trillion and 57% coming from going towards that debt servicing, it means we don't even have enough resource envelope to invest in other sectors of the economy.
Okay.
So we need to prioritize. I am looking forward to a more robust budget process, and I hopefully this time it will be signed by the president. There will be nothing extraneous about it. But nonetheless, I wish all the Ugandans really a fantastic 2025, and I hope that the economy will be stable. And coming from the movement of the president around the country, I believe that the communities outside there will become more productive than relying on the few manufacturers within Kampala.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Sarah.
Briefly, I want to talk about the pillars of democracy and the role of the people in regards to the protection of the Constitution. The 5 key pillars of democracy are active citizenry, rule of law, independent institutions, transparency and accountability, and credible, free and fair elections. Article 3 of our Constitution is very clear that all citizens must protect the Constitution against any persons, any authority, or any force of persons that engage in acts that violate the Constitution. So when orders that contradict the Constitution are issued, the people should be on a watch out, and they must make sure that the police of Uganda will not violate the liberty of Ugandans following unconstitutional orders. It's their duty as per Article 3 of the Constitution. Otherwise, I wish you a happy 2025.
Thank you very much. Lastly, the Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy. Let me first of all add to Professor Sarah's submission about NYANGWESO's article. Professor Sarah got it right. The biggest problem is the Uganda Revenue Authority is concentrating on very few people. The informal sector is really too huge in this country. Me, I have been in cross-border trade since I was 14, yes, and I'm still in that business. But you can see where we lose money. And every time you tell them, you guys, if you do like this, you'll get more money, they stick to formality, which doesn't work. Some countries have even put in place measures to even get money from the informal sector. And I think the Revenue Authority should wake up and do that. On KCCA, landfills are no longer modern way of managing garbage. There is now modern technology. So going to buy land in Mitiana may not be a very, very appropriate solution to now make another heap of what? Of garbage. I think let them explore other technologies which can really manage garbage better and in a smaller space. Rationalization is a policy shift, and therefore it is unstoppable. After all, when government created these agencies, some of them were opposed, like UCDA. It was opposed thoroughly, but it was created. That was the policy then. There is now a policy shift, and it has been studied very well. We only pray that it is going to work. This year we have so many activities coming up, including AFCON, and whereas my brother Omar is pessimistic about the oil, we are still very optimistic we are still very optimistic that we shall hit we shall go by the schedule. And elections are coming.
September 2025.
September 2025. We may delay a bit, but it should be in 2025. And this year is a year of elections. It is an election, and it's also an election year, and 2026. And most of the activities are in this year, primary elections and the like.
Okay.
I pray that Ugandans stay calm, and I pray that all players go by the rule. I know it will be a hectic year, both internal elections and then national elections. But we are preparing. We are prepared as government to manage that process. Okay. And the security agencies are now undergoing training about how to manage elections.
Not the Electoral Commission, but security agencies.
No, obviously the training which the security agencies are going through, Electoral Commission is what is handling. Because
the police or the army?
All security organs. Because you may think it is only police. There are so many, even police gets intelligence from other security organs. But what has been causing problems, probably Electoral Commission has been doing civic education to honor the voters. But even the security has to get trained to manage, to assist the Electoral Commission to manage elections. So people should be calm. Elections will end, and will end peacefully, and then RM will win.
Let's leave that there. I want to thank
yes.
I want to thank the production team for making today possible. Andrew, thank you very much. Professor Sarah, Honorable Mara, Dr. Sarah, and the Honorable Minister. Today we will switch it to just a scripture. Andrew, for you. May the Lord look to you with favor and give you peace in this year 2025. God bless you. Good morning.
Amen.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Country to lecture other countries like Slovakia who relied on Ukraine transited Russian gas because this country, Moldova, had an alternative supply of Russian gas. We're talking about the gas pipe from Russia into the pro-Russian separatist enclave of Transnistria by a company called Moldova Gas, half owned by Russia's Gazprom and a third by Moldova. But Moldova just stopped paying its bills and in the process has racked up a $700 million debt. So basically the West is stealing interest on Russian investments to pay Zelensky. Zelensky's reportedly using it to try bribing his way into NATO with Slovakia. Ukraine's stealing Russian or even pro-Russian assets through nationalization, $48 million worth in the case of one particular oligarch. Moldova is now trying to steal the gas company that belongs to Russia so it doesn't have to pay its energy bills. Wow, sounds like 2025 is starting out on a real high note for the Democratic Values Camp.
Zelensky says he hopes U.S. gas supplies replacing those previously from Russia will make prices, quote, more affordable. We spoke with the chairman of Slovakia's Patriot Party. He said that due to transportation costs, the American deliveries to Europe will be much more expensive.
As for possible assistance from Brussels, I think the approach will be 50-50. There is no answer yet, but I think their answer will be that another alternative for gas supplies is possible. For example, Turkstream, or gas from the U.S. But let's think, who would buy a car, for example, for 1,000 euros when he could buy it for 100 euros? Of course, it is possible to find an alternative. But how can Slovakia's economy withstand such an approach? No one considers this. But these are logical economic questions. The President and Prime Minister must work in such a way that it is economically good for their own country, not for Zelensky or the U.S. Our own national interests must be respected. Of course, the interests of the U.S. are good, but there are also the interests of other countries. For example, the interests of Russia and China, and the interests of Slovakia. But it seems to me that Europe is now dominated by Zelensky's interests. For 60 years, there was oil and gas here. Everything was fine, even when there were problems between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, or between us and the Soviet Union, and still there were energy resources coming in. What is the problem now? The problem is Zelensky. You should not believe him. He is not doing anything good for Ukraine or anyone else, only for himself and maybe for the U.S. He has never done and will never do anything good for Ukraine.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has taken aim at Elon Musk after the billionaire expressed support for the right-wing Alternative for Germany party. Scholz said in his New Year's address that it's not up to social media execs like Elon Musk to determine Germany's future.
Das bestimmen Sie. You